Hi, my name is Serafina Whitaker, and I'm 27 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you how I died at my boyfriend's family dinner and how his mother tried to turn my body off like a light switch. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this one ends. I have type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed when I was 11, on a Sunday afternoon that split my life into two halves, before needles and after needles. For the last 16 years, managing my condition has been part of my daily existence, as automatic as brushing my teeth or breathing. I am meticulous. Obsessive, some people would say. I check my blood sugar multiple times a day. I count carbs with the kind of focus most people reserve for exam questions. I never miss a dose of insulin. My life literally depends on it. There's a quiet terror that lives inside every type 1 diabetic. The knowledge that we are always one broken pen, one missed dose, one stupid mistake away from disaster. That fear sits in the background of everything I do. I respect it. I plan around it. I survive because of it. 3 years ago, I met Patrick. On our first date, we sat in a dim little Italian place with flickering candles and too loud music. Somewhere between the bruschetta and the main course, I did the thing I always dread. I pulled my insulin pen from my bag. "This is going to look more dramatic than it is," I joked, tapping the pen. "I'm a diabetic. I take insulin before I eat. If that freaks you out, now's your chance to run." I meant it as a test. I've watched boys go pale, look at the pen like a weapon, or ask if I'm okay to have kids before dessert. Patrick didn't flinch. Instead, his eyes softened. "How does it work?" he asked. "What do I do if something goes wrong?" No pity, no horror, just curiosity and concern. Over the months that followed, he learned everything. He learned how to recognize the signs of high and low blood sugar. He learned where I kept my emergency glucagon kit and how to use it. "I want to keep you safe," he told me once, holding my hand while I changed a lancet. That's when I knew he wasn't just another boyfriend. 2 years ago, we moved in together. It felt like the start of everything good. Our tiny apartment was cluttered with art supplies and takeout containers and insulin pens tucked into drawers next to spare phone chargers. I'm a graphic designer, so my life has always been lines and color palettes. But now it was also shared toothbrushes and his jacket thrown over the back of my chair, the comfort of a second mug on the counter in the morning. Everything was perfect, except for one thing. Patrick's mother, Carol. You know how some people manage to turn a room cold just by walking into it? That was Carol. On paper, she should have been my ally, a retired nurse, someone with medical training, someone who should understand chronic illness. In real life, she was my worst nightmare in a cardigan. Carol had very strong opinions about health and medicine, not the grounded, science-based kind. The "I saw a video on a wellness blog once, and now I'm an expert" kind. She believed most conditions could be cured through diet, herbs, and natural remedies. From the moment Patrick told her I was diabetic, the comments started. At our first dinner together at her house, she ladled soup into my bowl and said almost casually, "You know, I've read that cinnamon can reverse diabetes." I blinked. "Cinnamon?" "Mm-hmm. And cutting out all sugar and carbs, of course," she went on. "Your body can heal itself if you stop poisoning it. You should try going off all that artificial insulin and just let your system reset." "Mom," Patrick cut in, already tense. "Serafina has type 1 diabetes. That's different from type 2. Her pancreas doesn't produce insulin at all. Diet alone won't fix it." Carol gave him a look like she was disappointed he'd fallen for such a basic lie. "Well, Western medicine wants you to believe that," she said sweetly. "Pharmaceutical companies make billions off insulin. Of course, they don't want people to know there are natural cures." I felt my jaw tighten. I've heard variations of this speech my entire life. It's always the same, someone who doesn't live with my condition deciding they know more than my endocrinologist. "I appreciate your concern," I told her, forcing a polite smile. "But I've been managing this for 16 years with my doctor's guidance. My treatment plan works for me." She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "If you say so, dear." "If you say so." Those 4 words stuck to me like burrs. The comments didn't stop. Every time we saw her, there was something new. She'd send Patrick articles about miracle diabetes cures, most of them hosted on websites that looked like they'd been built in 2004 and never updated. She suggested cinnamon capsules, special teas, essential oils you rub on your feet to balance your pancreas. Patrick would roll his eyes, delete the messages, and apologize on her behalf. But Carol never dropped it. My best friend Simone called it early on. We've known each other since high school, so she reads me like a book. That woman does not respect boundaries, Simone told me one night while we split fries at a diner. Watch out for her. She's not just concerned, she wants control. I can handle it, I said, staring at the swirl of ketchup on my plate. She's just intense. Simone raised an eyebrow. Intense people with medical opinions and no respect for your doctor are dangerous. Seriously, Serafina, be careful. I should have listened to her more seriously. Things escalated 6 months ago when Patrick and I told Carol we were thinking about having a baby. My endocrinologist, Dr. Williams, had gone over every detail with me. My blood sugar control was excellent. She was confident I could have a healthy pregnancy with careful monitoring. Carol was not confident. She was furious. You can't have a baby with that condition, she snapped, as if I'd announced I was going to jump off a bridge for fun. It's too dangerous. You'll pass it on to the child. Type 1 diabetes isn't inherited that way, I said calmly. I'd had this conversation with strangers on the internet, with well-meaning coworkers, with distant relatives. I knew the script. And plenty of women with type 1 have healthy pregnancies. I was a nurse for 30 years, Serafina, Carol said, like a verdict. I know what I'm talking about. You're being selfish and reckless. Patrick stepped in, jaw clenched. Mom, that's enough. This is our decision, not yours. Dr. Williams supports it. Fine, Carol said coldly, but don't come crying to me when something goes wrong. After that, something shifted. She stopped pretending to be warm. At family gatherings, she barely spoke to me. When she did, it was to toss out barbed little comments. Still dependent on those shots, I see, she'd say, eyeing my insulin pen. Must be exhausting being tied to medication all the time. Patrick confronted her more than once, but she always blinked innocently. I'm just concerned about her health, she'd say. Is that a crime? Patrick's younger brother, Tyler, pulled me aside at a barbecue one afternoon. The air smelled like charcoal and overcooked burgers. Carol was inside making a salad that nobody wanted. Mom's acting weird about you, he said quietly. Weirder than usual. She keeps talking about how you shouldn't have kids, how your insulin is poison. It's creepy. I know, I sighed. But what am I supposed to do? She's your mom. I can't exactly ban her from my life. Tyler hesitated, then said, just be careful around her. When Mom gets an idea in her head, she doesn't let it go. I remember looking through the kitchen window then, seeing Carol fussing with the salad bowl, her movements sharp and precise. For a second, a chill crept up my spine. Irrational, I told myself. Dramatic. I had no idea how wrong I was, because the next phase of Carol's concern was already starting, and it would end with me on the floor at her dinner table, my body quietly shutting down while she watched. After that fight about the baby, Carol didn't scream anymore. She did something worse. She went quiet. At first, it was subtle. At family gatherings, she'd greet everyone else with hugs and bright smiles, then turn to me with a polite, brittle, "Hello, Serafina." Her eyes would skim over my body like she was searching for evidence, bloated ankles, tired eyes, proof that my reckless diabetic body was already failing. When I took my insulin, she'd watch, not openly, just a little side glance, a tightening at the corners of her mouth like she was watching someone shoot up in the corner of her living room. Patrick noticed. Mom, stop staring at her when she injects, he said one Sunday. I'm just concerned, she replied. Is that a crime? Concern. It's amazing how that word can be twisted into a knife. I clung to the things that still felt normal. My job, my routines, my appointments with Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams was the opposite of Carol. Calm, measured, science in human form. She went over my numbers, my A1C, my patterns, and nodded with a small, satisfied smile. You're in excellent control, Serafina, she said at my last appointment before everything went wrong. If you and Patrick decide to move forward with a pregnancy, we'll monitor you carefully. There are risks, yes, but there are always risks. The important thing is that you're informed and prepared. You can absolutely have a healthy baby. I left her office feeling grounded, seen, not fragile or doomed, just human. Patrick squeezed my hand in the elevator. Hear that? We're not reckless. We're responsible and terrifyingly well-informed. I laughed, leaning into him. Tell that to your mother. We both knew he already had. It hadn't mattered. Carol didn't want facts. She wanted control disguised as love. A few weeks after the baby argument, the shift happened. Patrick came home from work, loosened his tie, and said cautiously, "So, Mom wants us to come over for dinner on Sundays." I looked up from my laptop. "Every Sunday?" "Yeah. She says she wants to be closer to us before we have kids." He made little quotation marks in the air. "And she promised she'd be more respectful." The words sounded foreign coming from his mouth in connection with Carol. I just stared at him. "You believe her?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I think she's scared. And when Mom's scared, she gets controlling and mean. Maybe she realized she went too far. Or maybe she realized she needed a different strategy." But I didn't say that out loud. I could see how much he wanted this. Peace between the two women in his life. A version of family that didn't feel like walking into a battlefield. "Okay," I said finally. "We'll go." The first Sunday dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Carol made roast chicken with vegetables. The house smelled like garlic and rosemary, like something from a family cookbook. She wore a soft blue sweater, hair neatly pinned back, the picture of a retired nurse turned grandmother in waiting. "Serafina," she said, almost warmly, "how's work going? Patrick says your last campaign did really well." I blinked. Yeah, it did." She asked about my projects, my favorite clients, even complimented a design she'd seen on a billboard that turned out to be mine. For almost an hour, it felt normal. The conversation didn't turn to my insulin until later. We were in the kitchen together, just the two of us, loading the dishwasher. Patrick and Tyler were in the living room arguing about a football game. There was the clink of plates, the muted roar of the TV. "So," Carol said casually, "what's your routine like with your condition?" "My diabetes," I clarified. I never liked when people reduced it to your condition, like it was a shameful family rumor. "Yes, how often do you take your insulin?" I hesitated, then told her the basic truth. "I take long-acting insulin once a day in the morning and fast-acting before meals. I adjust the fast-acting dose based on what I'm eating." "And where do you keep it?" she asked, her back turned as she rinsed a glass. "In my purse, usually. I keep backups in our bathroom medicine cabinet at home." She nodded thoughtfully, like she was just curious. "And you never miss a dose?" "Never," I said. "It's too dangerous." She placed the glass in the rack with careful precision. "You're very disciplined. I admire that." On the drive home, Patrick was glowing. "Did you see? She was trying. She was actually trying." "I guess," I said slowly, "she was different." That night, Simone called. "So, how was the dinner with your favorite wellness cult leader?" I laughed, but it came out thin. "Honestly, not terrible. She was nice. Asked about my work. Asked about my insulin routine." A pause. "She asked what exactly?" "Like how much I take, when I take it, where I keep it." Another pause, longer this time. "Serafina, that's weird." "She used to be a nurse," I said. "I think she just likes medical details." Simone exhaled into the phone. "Just keep your guard up, okay? Sudden sweetness from someone who hates your treatment plan? That's not a personality change. That's a strategy." I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. "You think she's plotting something? What, hiding my pens? Throwing away my strips?" "I don't know," Simone said. "I just know she doesn't respect boundaries. Or your doctor. And people like that do scary things when they think they're saving someone." We had more Sunday dinners. At the second one, Carol made lasagna and a salad no one touched. She asked more questions. "How do you know how much insulin to take for a meal? What happens if you take too much? What if you take too little? How long does it last in your system?" I answered most of them, because on the surface they were reasonable questions. But there was this feeling, like she wasn't just curious. She was studying me, mapping my routine the way a thief might map the cameras in a bank. "You really trust those pens," she murmured once as I clicked my dose. "So small, and yet your whole life depends on them." "Yes," I said coldly, "I do." Around that time, something strange started happening. My blood sugar, which had been boringly predictable for years, began acting off. Some mornings I'd wake up higher than usual, even though I'd taken my long-acting insulin at the same time, in the same dose. I'd find myself thirstier, going to the bathroom more, feeling like my body was wading through syrup. Then other days, my numbers would be almost normal again. I chalked it up to stress. Between work, baby planning, and navigating Carol's mood swings, I was carrying a lot. At my follow-up with Dr. Williams, I mentioned it. "My morning readings are bumpier than usual," I said, showing her the log on my phone. "It's like some days the insulin isn't doing as much." She frowned, scrolling. "It's not terrible, but I see what you mean. Let's adjust your dose slightly and see if that smooths things out." She increased the long-acting dose a little. I left with a new schedule and the quiet reassurance I always felt after seeing her. But the fluctuations continued. I started feeling off. Some days, I was exhausted despite sleeping 8 hours. My mouth would be dry for no reason. I'd drink water and still feel like my tongue was a piece of sandpaper. I checked my insulin pens. Expiration dates were fine, the liquid inside clear. I checked the lot numbers online just in case there'd been a recall. Nothing. Maybe it's just a rough patch, Patrick said, wrapping his arms around me as I sat at the kitchen table, meter still in my hand. You've been under a lot of pressure. Maybe. But there was a little voice in the back of my mind whispering, something isn't adding up. Meanwhile, Carol was blossoming. She started bringing over little care packages, homemade granola bars with no sugar, perfect for you, brownies made with natural sweeteners, herbal teas that she claimed would support my pancreas. One afternoon, she stopped by our apartment with a tray of brownies and a bright, too-wide smile. I was in the neighborhood, she said. Can I use your bathroom? Sure, Patrick said, taking the tray. I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes when I heard the bathroom door click shut down the hall. It stayed closed longer than a quick bathroom stop really needed. I remember glancing up, feeling a flicker of unease, but then Patrick called, You have to try these, Sarah, from the living room, and I let it go. She emerged a few minutes later, cheeks flushed, hair a little out of place. Everything okay? I asked. Of course, she said, a bit too quickly. You have such a lovely apartment. That night, my morning number was higher than usual, again. You're thinking too much about it, I told myself, pricking my finger and watching the drop of blood swell. You're stressed, that's all. But the pattern kept repeating, a subtle, sinister rhythm under the surface of my life. Then, about 3 weeks later, Carol called with a bright, almost giddy tone in her voice. Serafina, darling, I'm making my famous beef stroganoff this Sunday, she said. Why don't you and Patrick come over? Tyler and Amber will be here too. A proper family dinner. You need your strength, after all. Something in me tightened, a tiny, quiet instinct that wanted to say no. But I heard Patrick's hopeful voice in the background. Tell her we'll be there, Sarah. It's been a while. And that stubborn part of me that still believed people could change overrode the fear. Okay, I said, we'll come. I had no way of knowing that by agreeing to that dinner, I was walking straight into the moment my body would shut down at the table while everyone watched. Carol's house always smelled the same, like lavender cleaner and something overcooked under tin foil. But that evening, the smell hit me differently, sharper, heavier, a mix of beef stroganoff simmering on the stove and something sweet baking in the oven. Patrick squeezed my hand on the doorstep. Let's try to make tonight easy, he murmured. I'll follow your lead, I said, even though a knot had already settled low in my stomach. Inside, Tyler and his girlfriend Amber were curled up on the couch. George, Patrick's father, had the TV turned up too loud, football blaring like background noise at a bar. Carol appeared from the kitchen, wearing an apron patterned with sunflowers. Serafina, she said warmly, you look pale. Are you feeling all right? I blinked. Yeah, just tired. She gave a tiny, knowing nod, as if she'd confirmed something only she understood. Dinner's almost ready. Make sure you eat everything, dear. You need your strength. There it was again. That phrase, you need your strength. I brushed it off, or I tried to. Before dinner, I went to the bathroom to check my blood sugar. 158. A little high, but nothing alarming. Stress could easily push me there. I pulled out my fast-acting insulin pen, the one I always kept in my purse, and calculated my dose based on the carbs I was about to eat. Muscle memory. A ritual I trusted more than anything. Click, inject, done. When I stepped into the dining room, Carol was already serving food with unusual enthusiasm. Her beef stroganoff steamed in thick curls. The mashed potatoes looked whipped to perfection. Eat plenty, she said again, practically placing the serving spoon in my hand. Your body works so hard, you must be starving. It was such an odd comment, but everyone was already digging in. I followed, trying to shove away the unease whispering in my ribs. The first few minutes of dinner were normal enough. Tyler telling a ridiculous story from work, Amber laughing, Patrick teasing George about the game playing on the TV. I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to believe this was finally the version of family I could belong to. But halfway through my plate, it started. At first, it was small, a slight blur at the edge of my vision, like someone had smeared Vaseline across my eyes. I blinked hard. The blur stayed. Then a heaviness in my head, a fog settling behind my forehead, thick and slow. Patrick, I whispered. He paused mid-sentence and turned to me immediately. What's wrong? I don't feel right. My throat was dry. My tongue felt like paper. I'd already drunk 2 glasses of water. I need to check my blood sugar, I said. I tried to stand, but my legs felt syrupy, boneless. Patrick helped me sit back down as I fumbled in my purse for my meter. I pricked my finger, applied the blood, waited for the number to load. Patrick leaned in. What's it say? The number flashed. 421. My breath caught. That can't be right, I whispered. I just took my insulin. Test again. He was already sliding the strip container toward me. I repeated the steps, hands shaking, vision warping. The second number appeared. 421. Patrick's face drained of color. Serafina. I need to go to the hospital. My voice came out thin, uneven. Something's really wrong. Carol's fork clattered onto her plate. Oh, don't be dramatic, she said. You probably miscalculated your carbs. Everyone makes mistakes. Patrick whipped toward her. Mom, stop, she's not okay. I'm fine, I tried to say, but the room tilted, the chandelier above me warping into a spinning halo of lights. My skin prickled. My breathing got fast, shallow, my lungs fluttering instead of expanding. I felt nausea rise in waves. My limbs went heavy, then numb. These were the signs. Diabetic ketoacidosis, life-threatening, immediate danger. I can't, the words dissolved on my tongue. The table swayed, the room dimmed, voices became muffled cotton, and then everything went black. I was gone before I hit the floor. I don't remember the sound of my body collapsing against Carol's hardwood. I don't remember Patrick shouting my name. I don't remember Tyler scrambling for the phone or Amber rushing toward me. But I've heard the voices since. Serafina, wake up! She's not breathing right. Someone call 911. Check her blood sugar. Where's her kit? I was drifting in a dark ocean, pulled under by something vast and cold. A distant siren, a hand squeezing mine, a voice breaking, Patrick's voice, begging me to stay. Then nothing. Silence. An empty void. When awareness returned, it came like a crack of light under a door. I felt stiff sheets beneath me, a cold IV line in my arm, the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. I blinked, barely able to open my eyes. A blurred shape sat beside me. A hand was holding mine. When the shape lifted its head, I recognized him immediately. Patrick. His face was swollen from crying. When he saw me blink, he let out a sound I'd never heard from him before, something like a sob and a gasp, tangled together. Thank God, he whispered, leaning over me. Serafina, thank God you're awake. I tried to speak. My throat was so dry it felt cracked. What happened? You went into a diabetic coma, he said, voice shaking. Your blood sugar was over 590 when the paramedics arrived. You had severe ketoacidosis. Sarah, his voice broke again. You almost died. The memory hit me all at once. The stroganoff, the dizziness, the numbers, the collapse. But I took my insulin, I whispered. I know I did. A soft knock sounded at the door. Dr. Williams stepped in, her expression grave. Serafina, she said gently, we need to talk about what happened. Patrick sat up straighter, gripping my hand. Your blood sugar was critically high, Dr. Williams continued. But when we ran your labs, we found something unusual. She held up 2 familiar objects, my insulin pens. The insulin you injected wasn't insulin, she said. It was mostly water. Someone had tampered with your medication. The room seemed to drop away beneath me. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. No, I whispered. That's impossible. I take such good care of... Dr. Williams shook her head. We tested both pens. Your fast-acting insulin contained only trace amounts of insulin. Your long-acting pen, the one you use every morning, was also diluted. Someone has been replacing your insulin little by little over time. Patrick's face was ashen. But why would someone do that? The detective standing in the doorway cleared his throat. We need to know who has access to your supplies. Has anyone shown unusual interest in your medical routine? Unusual interest. Questions. Bathroom visits. Sweetness that wasn't sweetness. The realization struck with the force of a blow. All the dinners, all the questions, all the sudden warmth. My mouth went dry, my fingers shook. I swallowed hard, then whispered the name. Carol. Patrick stiffened beside me. Sarah, my mom wouldn't... But he didn't finish the sentence, because he'd seen the doubt bloom in his own eyes. And deep down, we both knew the truth. She absolutely would. The moment I said Carol's name, the room changed. Patrick flinched as if I'd slapped him. Dr. Williams went still. The detective's pen paused mid-note. Patrick shook his head hard. Sarah, No. My mom, she's stubborn, she has opinions, but she wouldn't try to hurt you. But his voice cracked on the last word, because even he knew the difference between stubborn and obsessed. The detective stepped forward. Miss Whitaker, has your boyfriend's mother ever handled your insulin, entered your home, shown interest in your medical routine? 1,000 moments flickered. Carol in my kitchen. Carol asking where I stored my doses. Carol in our bathroom, alone, too long. Carol watching me inject like she was studying something. Carol's apron pockets filled with God knows what. I swallowed. She's asked about my doses. A lot. She knows where I keep my pens. She's been in our bathroom before. Patrick pressed a hand to his forehead, trembling. Oh my God. A few hours later, after blood draws, IV fluids, and a barrage of medical questions, the hospital room door opened again. This time it was Tyler. He hovered near the doorway, face pale, guilt etched into every line. Hey, can I come in? I nodded. Patrick kept his head down, elbows on his knees. Tyler stepped closer. I heard what the police found. I need to tell you something. Patrick looked up sharply. What do you mean? Tyler swallowed. A few weeks ago, I stopped by Mom and Dad's house unannounced. I needed to borrow Dad's drill. Mom was in the bathroom. He hesitated. There were syringes on the counter, saline vials, and insulin pens. A chill rippled through me. Tyler looked sick. She jumped when I walked in, said she was cleaning out old nursing supplies, but she'd never kept insulin pens before. She's not diabetic. Patrick's face drained of color. Ty, why didn't you say anything? Tyler's voice cracked. Because I didn't want to believe Mom was... I thought maybe she bought them for research or something. She's been obsessed with natural cures lately. Dr. Williams stepped between us gently. Tyler, thank you. That information is extremely important. Tyler's eyes filled. I'm so sorry, Sarah. The police moved fast. Within 24 hours, they obtained a warrant to search Carol's house. Patrick refused to go to the house. He stayed with me. But Tyler went, and later he told us everything. Carol's bathroom cabinet, hidden behind stacks of folded towels, contained multiple empty insulin pen cartridges, same brand and type I use. Syringes, empty saline vials, a small notebook, pages filled with Carol's tight, looping handwriting. The detective brought photos to the hospital. My hands shook when I saw them. The notebook had entries like, Serafina relies too much on medication. Begin gradual replacement so she won't notice. If she's forced off insulin, her body will learn to regulate naturally. By the time her numbers rise, it will appear as poor self-management. No one will suspect tampering. My stomach turned. She had planned this for months. Carol hadn't snapped. She had strategized, step by step, dinner by dinner, smile by smile. A line in the notebook chilled me to the bone. She must be gradually weaned. If she realizes too soon, the process fails. Process. Like I was an experiment. Dr. Williams sat beside me, voice gentle but firm. Serafina, this wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate attempt to deprive you of insulin. Without intervention, the outcome would have been fatal. Fatal. The word echoed like a hollow bell. Patrick shook his head, staring at the photos of the notebook. She wrote this, he whispered. She wrote this. Later that evening, the police returned, this time with even more evidence. A recording from Tyler. He'd gone to Carol's house before the search, pretending he just wanted to talk. He asked her what was going on, why everyone was upset. Carol, believing she was speaking in confidence, confessed everything. The detective played the audio in my hospital room. Carol's voice, soft and disturbingly calm. She doesn't need insulin. Her body can heal itself if she stops relying on pharmaceuticals. I was monitoring her closely. I would have stepped in if things got too bad. She's stronger than she thinks. This was for her own good. Patrick covered his mouth, horrified. Carol finished with, everyone will thank me eventually. They just don't see it yet. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. This wasn't ignorance. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was delusion, weaponized by medical knowledge, executed with chilling precision. The police arrested her that evening. George, her husband, was there when they came. He was devastated. He kept saying he didn't recognize the woman he married. Patrick, head in hands, listened to the detective recount it. She denied everything at first. Then she said she was trying to save you. Then she blamed you for eating too many carbs at dinner. Patrick whispered. She watched Sarah collapse, and still. He couldn't finish. He looked at me, tears finally spilling. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I should have listened. I grabbed his hand. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. But he didn't believe me, not yet. A week passed before the full list of charges came back. Carol was formally charged with attempted murder, felony assault, tampering with medication, using medical knowledge to cause bodily harm. The last charge carried heavy penalties. Nurses are held to a higher standard, and she had weaponized her training. George immediately filed for divorce. Tyler started therapy. Patrick stopped answering her calls from jail. And me? I lay in a hospital bed with an oxygen tube under my nose, recovering from a coma I should never have woken up from. Trying to understand how someone who claimed to love her son could try so hard to erase the woman he loved. But healing wasn't the end. The real reckoning hadn't even started. Because Carol still had one thing left to lose, and she was about to lose it in a courtroom full of strangers. The trial didn't start for 4 months. 4 months of medical checkups, court dates, evidence reviews, and a fog of nightmares so thick I sometimes woke up gasping, convinced I was still on Carol's kitchen floor. 4 months of Patrick waking up too, holding me so tightly it felt like he was trying to anchor me to this world. 4 months of fear, raw, chemical, bone deep, every time I picked up an insulin pen, even though I now kept them in a locked metal case only Patrick and I had keys to. 4 months of wondering how close Carol had come to succeeding. And then, finally, the trial began. Courtrooms always look cleaner on TV. In real life, they are cold, echoing, and full of people who don't know your story, but feel entitled to judge it anyway. Carol sat at the defendant's table, hair pulled back, wearing a soft beige sweater that made her look like someone's harmless grandmother. If you didn't know the truth, you'd think she was there for a traffic violation. But her eyes gave her away. They were bright, sharpened, still certain she was right. George refused to sit behind her. He sat behind me and Patrick instead, looking 10 years older, hands trembling every time Carol shifted in her seat. Tyler didn't look at her at all. The prosecution laid out the case with surgical precision. Photos of the saline vials and empty insulin cartridges found in her cabinet. The lab reports showing my pens contained 90% water. Carol's handwritten notebook, where she'd mapped out her plan. Tyler's recording, where she admitted everything. Medical testimony from Dr. Williams explaining how close I came to not coming back. When they played the recording in court, the whole room went painfully still. Carol's voice echoed through the speakers. She doesn't need insulin. Her body can heal itself if she's weaned properly. I was watching her closely. I would have stepped in before anything serious happened. She'll thank me one day. A juror flinched. Another put a hand over her mouth. Even Carol's own lawyer closed his eyes for a moment. They brought in a psychologist. They tried to argue Carol had a delusional disorder, that she genuinely believed in what she was doing, that she wasn't capable of understanding the danger. But the prosecutor was ready. She hid the evidence, the prosecutor said. She lied to her husband. She lied to her sons. She documented her plan. She hid her actions for months. That is not delusion. That is intent. Carol showed no remorse. Not once. Not even when my medical photos were displayed. Not even when the paramedics testified how close I'd been to irreversible brain damage. She only shook her head, muttering under her breath, "They don't understand." When I took the stand, my legs trembled so badly Patrick nearly had to help me walk. I faced the jury, 12 strangers, who would define the next decade of Carol's life. "My name is Serafina Whitaker," I began, voice shaking but steadying with each word. And I trusted her. I told them about the comments, the manipulation, the disguised cruelty, the dinners, the notebook, the coma. I told them what it felt like to die, how I heard voices but couldn't answer, how my lungs forgot how to work, how the world dimmed and tried to go quiet forever. When I looked at the jurors again, not a single one looked away. I finished with, "Carol Foster didn't just attack my body, she attacked my sense of safety. She tried to prove a point by turning off the only body I have. I will live with the fear she created for the rest of my life." There were tears in the jury box. There were tears behind me, but not at the defendant's table. Carol only crossed her arms, like she was the victim. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read, "Guilty on all counts." Patrick let out a breath like he'd been holding it for years. George buried his face in his hands. Tyler cried quietly, shaking. Carol just stared straight ahead, eyes cold, as if she hadn't heard a thing. At sentencing, I gave my final statement. My life is measured in doses. Every injection is a step toward tomorrow. She stole those tomorrows from me, deliberately, methodically, unapologetically. I want the court to understand the magnitude of what she took and what she tried to take forever. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in prison, no parole for at least 10. They revoked her nursing license permanently. Her medical community disowned her. Former coworkers refused to speak in her defense. The Chicago Tribune wrote an article calling her a dangerous example of medical radicalization. Carol's face finally cracked then, not with remorse, but with outrage. She screamed that she was being punished for saving me. Security escorted her away as she shouted, "You're all blind! I was helping her!" Her voice echoed down the hallway long after she was gone. George moved to Arizona to live near his sister. He calls Patrick once a week, always ends by saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Tyler goes to therapy twice a week. He blames himself for not stopping Carol sooner. I tell him it wasn't his job, but guilt doesn't listen to logic. Amber checks in on me, too. She told the police Carol had tried to test her, too, asking if she thought I seemed overly dependent on medication. Amber never trusted her after that. Simone all but moved into my apartment for 2 weeks after the hospital. She checks every insulin pen with me now, like a ritual. "Nobody's getting near your meds again," she says fiercely. "Over my dead body." The physical recovery took weeks. The psychological recovery is ongoing. I have recurring nightmares, hypervigilance, panic attacks when my numbers fluctuate even slightly, a locked case for my insulin, test strips that detect tampering, 2 therapists, one for trauma, one for medical anxiety. Patrick has his own scars. He blames himself, even though I keep telling him it wasn't his fault. We do couples therapy now, because when one person nearly dies, the relationship absorbs the shock too. We put baby plans on hold, not forever, but until I feel safe in my own body again. Patrick suggested moving to Portland, a new city, new memories, a place where Carol's shadow can't follow us. Maybe we will. Maybe we need to. I started a small blog about chronic illness and medical gaslighting. People from all over the country wrote to me. I had a family member who didn't believe my condition either. My partner told me I exaggerate my symptoms. My parents think I can cure myself naturally. I learned something important. Carol wasn't an isolated monster. She was part of a bigger, quieter danger. People who think they know better than your doctors and believe love justifies control. I survived her, and now I speak for the people who didn't. Sometimes, late at night, when Patrick is asleep and the apartment is quiet, I sit by the window and ask myself, if someone you love endangers your life because they refuse to respect your body or your boundaries, do you ever forgive them? Or do you make sure they face every single consequence? I already know my answer. I lived it.